Hi, my name is Aksik, aka Annika. Welcome to my channel. Here I mostly talk about adult coloring books, art materials, and whatnot, whatever pops into my head. And today I thought we might do actually a little bit of coloring. So here is the book we're going to be working today in, and the image I thought I'm going to be working in is one of the main reasons is that a lot of you have kind of shown interest and talked about this and asked to do bits of it on camera. And I thought I would do the dog with you today. Now the dog is based with watercolors. This book has really good paper for watercolors. It takes pretty much really heavy washes if you want to. Like this was absolutely flooded with watercolor. Yeah, watercolor doesn't sink in. You can spread it, you can blend it. So it's really great book if you want to kind of start your first steps with watercolors in coloring books. Okay, I'm not saying that we're coloring books like watercolor artists here, or I am in any way knowledgeable in that sense. But yeah, it is a good book, you know, if you want to start learning some sort of a medium in coloring books. It's always good to start out in a paper that accepts it reasonably well, and then afterwards you can start fighting fighting with the elements, and you know, maybe try and kind of figure out the ways how to use the same medium on a paper that isn't great for it. Anyway, that tangent aside, so I based it with watercolor, and it's very, very kind of simple basing. You know, there's no layering or anything. It's just one layer of watercolor. Essentially, I think I used buff titanium on the lighter parts of the dog's body. That's a kind of really light value watercolor, but you can also get kind of a similar results with any kind of a creamy tone. You can dilute a little bit of yellow ochre with some maybe white, titanium white, and plenty of water, and you get something similar, although a bit warmer. You can dilute raw umber with quite a bit of water, and maybe add a tiny bit of white into it as well if your palette has white. So, you know, that's for the body. And I think that one was done, I don't even remember, but because, you know, different palettes have slightly different colors, but it looks to me like it might have been burnt sienna off. I don't know which palette now it was, because I have several of them. So, you know, I just put down one layer, and I did try to kind of put maybe it down a little bit stronger in the areas that would be in more shadow. I could, of course, you know, add more layers and therefore kind of reduce my pencil work, but I'm not really bothered to do that. So pencils I'm going to be using on this this dog. Here are the pencils we're going to be working with tomorrow. I just grabbed a handful of them because I don't really know. Usually I grab as my kind of by feeling, essentially. So I don't have them precisely figured out yet, but I grabbed colors. These are Derwent drawing pencils, which are great for fur, although they have very thick leads. They have 4mm leads, so you know, you would think that they are kind of hard, and they're very soft also. You would think that it's hard to do fur with them, but it's actually opposite. You know, it's very nice to work with them on pretty much most of the papers. And they give a beautiful soft result. You can go very detailed as well, but I'm planning to do kind of fairly loose interpretation of a dog or the fur. Because, you know, I don't want to sit here and render, you know, one leg for 3 hours. That's, you know, not how I feel like at the moment. So the colors I picked out, so I picked out brown ochre. This is probably going to be used in lighter areas. Also for lighter areas, I pricked out green shadow. And Chinese white might be used pretty much everywhere where I need to feel that I need to lighten things, because they're so opaque, you can actually kind of mix them and lighten things as you go on. For the darkest shadows of them all, I picked out chocolate. This would be probably the darkest of all the colors here, just, you know, for really dark shadowy areas. Then I also picked out yellow ochre, also for the kind of a lighter fur areas. And terracotta, this is for rendering kind of the redness, because Springer Spaniels, this is a Springer Spaniel in case you didn't know. Springer Spaniels have fairly reddish hue to their fur, the darker bits anyway, so this is kind of to render that redness. Then we have warm earth, which is another one that I will probably use in the darker areas of the light fur, kind of a shadowy areas. And then I also have Mars orange, another color that is kind of to give that redness to the fur, and ruby earth, kind of darker reddish tone. And then I also have sepia, which I'm not sure I'm going to need because I already have chocolate, but I kind of pulled it out anyway. And I have sanguine, which is also kind of an orangish reddish tone. And finally I have wheat, which is a really light color for kind of blending out and, you know, kind of working in the lighter areas of the dog. So let's start with the lighter areas. And I'm going to grab, I like to put some shadows down first. So I'm grabbing the warm earth from Derwent drawing, and this author has essentially given us already hints where the kind of shadows will be with the hatching here. So one main thing if you want to do fur is to figure out what direction is the hair is going, and then keep your pencil strokes going in that direction, and then you can't really go wrong. You just essentially only work in strokes. There are only very few areas that I will kind of, you know, just put color down more strongly, and therefore, you know, I might, you know, if it's kind of a tight area, I might actually, you know, move like this. And I'm going to get you a bit closer so maybe you can see a bit better, hopefully. But yeah, mostly I'm still going to work with the strokes like this. But, you know, you can see that it's hard to get nice strong shadow under the chin area there, which I want to. So I'm going to put that down with the smooth long strokes like this, just to create a shadow. And then I'm going to go back to that shadow area, and I'm going to bring a little kind of like strokes out of it, because I want it to be, well, this will give me the idea and the impression of the hair, the dog being hairy. And here as well, you know, the artist has kind of given some hints and ideas, you know, how the fur would move and where the kind of a tufts of it will be. Think of it, don't think of fur coat as kind of one kind of a unified area of fur, like a rug, okay, that just goes and all the hairs go in same direction. If it's a living, moving animal, there's going to be little tufts of hair, there's going to be kind of uneven areas, and like here, you know, there's clearly, you know, the dog is moving, so probably the hair is a little bit longer in this area than in this area, so you're going to have like clumps of hair. So go by area. Don't create, you know, usually the result isn't as good if you just created kind of even hairiness, you know, from here to here, just little strokes of hair. That wouldn't look much natural at all. You know, you can, of course, you know, go supernatural. Like I can show you the lid of the, oh, did I lose it? Okay, this is the lid now of the Derwent drawing pencils, which you can't see very well because of the ring light, but okay, I'm trying to show it to you. And you can see how that fox is rendered, you know, how every single hair seems to be really, really detailed. We don't try to do that because that takes a long time. I have tried to do that and I haven't kind of managed to do that in some of my works in the past. But it's just, you know, in my opinion, especially in a coloring book, it's just not worth it. You know, it's a huge time investment. And yes, you can do it. And yes, the more you stroke, the more pencils you use, the more layers you use, the more natural it will look. But this, if your eyes don't actually perceive the fur that detailed anyway, you would have to be pretty darn close to the animal or to the hair to actually see the strands like this. You see pretty much, yeah, clumps, you see areas. So it's important to think in terms of, you know, where is the hair long? Where is the hair short? On the legs, the hair is going to be fairly short. Here, the hair is going to be fairly long. So here I'm going to have a bit longer strokes, but here as I'm going now down the legs, my strokes are going to be shorter. And I'm just, you know, flicking with my pencil. And in the areas where now I'm just creating shadows, here the fur wouldn't even be visible much at all. So I'm not even trying to create much of an impression of fur here. I'm more so trying to get the shadows right here. And as you can see, I'm putting, you would think that this is a fairly dark pencil. And undoubtedly it is a fairly dark pencil. But the shadows are always, like, you're better off having a bit more of a contrast. And as I have said many times before, you know, the white is never actually white. And the light parts of the dogs or of any any animal, or, you know, especially this animal here, are only light in comparison to the darker parts. So I'm just, you know, here's the hair is going to be, you know, longish. There's a little tufts of it here. And I'm just, you know, where I can see that, you know, the artist has put those tufts in, I'm going to go over them as well. But I'm taking care not to make everything too dark. I'm just putting that darker color where I know that something is casting shadow onto it. Or, you know, it's just the way the limb curves. You know, here there just naturally would be more of a shadow than here. And there's going to be a bit of shadow here as well. Okay, and here. And here I, underneath that little medallion thing, I'm going to put down fairly sharp shadow, which is just kind of a cast shadow of this medallion. And then I'm bringing some little hair flicks out as well. Okay. So, and where the leaves are falling onto the dog, or kind of on top of the dog, I'm also, they're kind of literally sitting on the dog's leg here, so I'm making it a fairly sharp shadow here, but I'm putting a little bit of a shadow down. Just, you know, so it wouldn't be utterly flat. Just a little bit like this, and maybe here as well. But I'm not trying not to put too much dark into the dog's legs, and just, you know, kind of putting myself down, put myself down where the shadow is. So I'm moving to the other leg. I'm pretty much Maybe I should put a little bit here as well, because this seems to be like it's curving like this, so there might be shadow here. And also, you know, you can see where the artist has put some strokes down, so I'm kind of repeating what he has been doing. And here as well. So here I'm not even trying to kind of make the fur impression, because that would just, you know, be a pain. Instead of that, I'm keeping my pencil strokes a bit rough and a bit textured, and that alone will give some sort of an impression of a texture there, which is what fur is, texture. So we're going to put some little strokes here, the shape of the paw. You can see how everything is thick, but I'm not trying to kind of create really even areas. I'm not trying to have them all absolutely going in the same exact direction. That is one of the mistakes we all make, especially when we start rendering fur, that even if we do carry the strokes in kind of the hair direction, we keep them all very even and very uniform and very in the same direction. That's not how fur works unless it's super short and super smooth. And this animal does, you know, have a bit of a curl and a bit of a longer and scruffier hair to it. So they wouldn't all be going to exactly the same direction. So, you know, keep them a bit haphazard, while at the same time kind of keeping in mind that they go roughly the correct direction. Okay, so here again, an animal, of course, moves. So, you know, here the hair curves a bit towards the face. Here it curves more towards the side of the dog. And just, you know, look, often the artist has given a like, you know, kind of idea or depiction where it should go, but just look how the limb is curving and how long the hair in there would be, and create kind of areas like this, like little clumps of fur. And so underneath the ears we want some sort of a, and here as well, you know, can clearly there's, and if it looks pretty nasty in the beginning like this, which undoubtedly, yes, it does, don't despair. It'll all get better once we put more pencils in, and, you know, it all kind of starts blending together, and you actually get quite natural feeling fur. To keep this video at somewhat reasonable length, but still show everything I'm doing, I do need to speed some bits off, so you can see once again that I'm going by the outline where it dips a bit. I'm giving kind of an effect of a musculature or a bit of a kind of a dipping area by putting a bit darker furry stroke area there, and I just kind of keep, you know, putting tiny clumps of fur or hair down, and also just working the fur texture all over the place. And here behind the head, once again, I need a bit of a shadow there, so I'm just doing eventually a regular kind of a, you know, I put some strokes down, but then I see that I need kind of stronger shadow there, so I am going to go over it with a pencil, just the regular way. You can see here I'm pressing down, I'm putting shadow down, and then, you know, taking a bit more kind of a fur strokes out of it, so it would look a bit more natural. And I'm just putting, you know, a bit of a fur texture everywhere, but not overdoing it now, because that is the darkest of the pencils I'm going to be using in these light areas. So, you know, but you can't be too timid about doing your shadows either, because shadows are what is going to make the image, essentially, what is going to prevent it being flat. And here you can see, how I'm rendering the part that is clearly kind of against the ground, and it's going to be dark. So I am making sure that, there's some darkness there and pretty strong strokes. And I'm also going to take kind of very, very lightly, almost not touching strokes throughout the back leg. Now, in a minute, I'm going to put them down. They're going to be very kind of gentle, very soft, fairly long. You can see kind of just putting some texture there, which I will eventually render over with lighter pencils, and it'll become kind of unified and softer effect than it is at the moment. Here I'm just kind of giving this impression that there's fur everywhere, but I'm not making it too tight. I'm just going to give a little bit of a hint here and there of texture. And on the face, I'm making sure that there's good shadow underneath the nose. And I'm just shaping the little face, or the light part of the face, like you would shape anything, and also give always a little bit of darkness or redness above the nose of the dog, because the hair is always a bit thinner there, and there is going to be some skin glowing through the fur, so that needs to be kind of depicted if we put some pencil down there, and just give some strokes for fur. Okay, and now I'm going to take, before I do anything else, I'm going to grab one of the kind of red pencils. I'm going to take Terracotta. And you probably, if you don't know this breed very well, you probably won't think of it, but I have actually had one in the family quite a long time ago, but I do remember. And they're actually spotty. There's going to be spots on the nose, kind of a bit haphazard here. The artist has made them too uniform, but they actually need to be kind of, some of them very small, some of them a bit bigger, different shapes. The Spaniels, the Springer Spaniel, has kind of a spotty areas, usually on the legs and usually on the face, but sometimes you would have them on the back as well. So I'm just putting some kind of a outline down here for some spots, and I'm going to also put some of that red on top of the nose, because as I said, we're going to have a bit of a skin glowing down here, and just making those spots here. Okay. And I'm also going to put some, like these darker areas, I'm going to make them into spots. So I'm going to kind of put some color into them. I'm trying to make them not uniform, so they would not be just round spots. They need to be a bit wonky, a more natural looking. And maybe there's one here. And everything is done with strokes, as you can see here. Okay, so I have these two down. I'm not going to put many more there. I'm going to make that into a spot. Basically anywhere the artist has put some darkness down, I'm using these also to kind of cover the dark bits. I don't know if he actually meant to use them as kind of like spots on a spaniel, but I am going to use them for that purpose. And here I'm speeding it up a bit as well, because I've already explained essentially the process, but I still want you to see what I'm doing. And you can also, of course, slow it down if you really wanted to. But the main thing is to keep the strokes, as I said, irregular and haphazard and light. You don't really want to press hard here. and just kind of put them down on certain different areas. And you can use that for any dog. It doesn't need to be just Springer Spaniels, just to give interest to any dog's fur or coat. You can put those little spots down, and it'll make the dogs just look more natural and fun. And we'll see how I develop them afterwards further. I have kind of a photo of Cocker Spaniel printed out, which is very not useful. Because this one, doesn't really look anything like the one. But you can see here, what I'm talking about. You have those kind of spotty areas. But in this one, there's actually fewer of them, and they look kind of fairly kind of narrow. And yeah, some of them are like this as well. But if it's darker Cocker Spaniel like this, they're going to be more kind of more of them, and they're going to be, I don't know how to even describe it. Yeah, more spotty than streaky, because this one is more like almost streaky, whereas my memories are more of a kind of like a spotty variety. My husband's parents used to have, they're now both gone, but when we first started kind of going out, and when I first moved to Ireland, his parents had a Cocker Spaniel, Springer Spaniel, who was called Gravity. And she was called Gravity because when she was whatever surface or however she positioned herself, she just managed to constantly fall off everywhere. So my husband started calling her Gravity, and a name stuck. So yeah. So I think we have enough dots now, do we? Do we have enough dots? It doesn't, yeah, it feels now that, it's getting kind of more natural feel to it. Okay, and now I'm moving to different kind of lighter colors. And I'm first putting in brown ochre. And I'm just kind of, the areas which are the darkest, I'm taking it slightly out of there. And I'm just flicking all over. From shadow areas to lighter areas. And I might also go over the terracotta slightly with it to kind of blend it more in, soften those spots so they wouldn't be so harsh, so they would look more natural part of the dog. And I essentially just keep flicking. Here I'm kind of getting the direction wrong. It just went too curvy. It should actually, kind of come more straight at the top. I went too far with kind of this direction. So I'm kind of trying to fix it now a bit here. And speeding up again and just showing how I'm taking that brown ochre continuously out of the warm earth a bit, kind of to soften the effect and lessen the harshness of the darker color there. And I'm also, especially if the animal is a bit curly as well, which the spaniel hair is slightly wavy. So I'm kind of keeping my strokes almost like crescent shaped, like U-shaped, or like this, not straight. Kind of try to give a bit of a curve if you do the hair. Give softness. If you do it like this, if it's a straight area, there's nothing wrong with it, if it's kind of flat area, but you do have to make variations. As you start going towards sides, it starts curving away. So it wouldn't be just, oops, no, this is out of focus, isn't it? Okay, probably I used this demonstration because you couldn't see anything. Okay, well, So here, once again, I'm going into those spots and bringing out with the brown ochre, again, a bit kind of a softening. Because the terracotta I did those spots with is pretty strong color. So we need to kind of soften and blend it into the surrounding fur. So I'm using the brown ochre to do that too. Speeding up again, basically showing the final bits of the process with brown ochre, just softening everything, basically the transitions from the warm earth to the light background color, and softening the spots on the nose, giving a bit more darkness and texture to the kind of shadow parts there, the belly, putting some strokes in, extra texture in onto the back leg as well, and softening the spots there too, just adding it everywhere essentially. Anyways, now I'm going to take something fairly yellow, which is yellow ochre. And of this, I do not add much. I'm just warming up some areas and leaving some areas cooler. And once again, I'm giving some strokes of it. Just some strokes, not, going very heavy on it at all. But I'm putting some strokes of it into those dots to kind of make them into more natural part of the dog. This pencil isn't obligatory, but it does add some tone and temperature variations to the fur, which will in exchange make it more natural and interesting looking. So it's a good idea to add it. And now I'm going to, there is this kind of a bluish tone, which is called smoke blue. And I'm going to take that one. Cover your ears, my dear friends. Okay. So I'm going to put some of that into the shadows as well. Just a little bit into some shadow here. Okay, I managed to actually break the lead. Although, no, I'm being very gentle here. But where the shadows are the kind of a darkest, I'm dropping some of that smoke blue in, just to cool these areas down a little bit. And these pencils just pretty much blend themselves, so you don't have to go super heavy at all. Sorry, I had to blow there onto a bit of a lead. Okay. I can put that tiny bit of that into those dots as well, just to kind of give them some interest and also movement, and make them feel like there's many colors there and everything kind of blends into the fur. This, as I said, is just another color and temperature variation pencil, which isn't essential, but really adds more interest and depth to the final result. So if you can, do it. Okay, that's enough now. And now I'm going to take wheat, which it's been getting smaller and smaller. And now with this one, I'm going to go pretty much over everything. And you can see yourself, I am not trying to be perfect or, depicting every strand of hair. And with that wheat, I actually, as you can see, I'm doing pretty long strokes. Essentially what I'm doing is kind of a stroke blending. I'm not blending like this in a kind of circular blending. I'm putting pretty strong strokes of that down, and it essentially kind of brings everything together. This would essentially be my kind of main, or one of my main colors here. So I'm going over even the shadow areas And I don't know if you can see, you know, it becomes more and more hair-like. Especially, you know, if you look at it from distance. A little bit of a distance. If you don't put your nose against the paper, which you're not really meant to do. So, okay. So nose here and here as well. But I'm trying also leave some areas almost totally light. I'm going to show you in a second what that is for. But I just keep kind of giving it now kind of a full wide strokes. What I'm actually doing here could be essentially described in short as stroke blending. So instead of trying to get a smooth result, which, you know, considering it's a fur and there's supposed to be texture there, would be a mistake, I blend with fairly wide strokes, so the pencil does not have to be super sharp or anything, and I'm just unifying all the colors and blurring out the really sharp pencil strokes. And now I'm taking my Chinese white, and in some areas, oops, I'm putting some white in as well. Especially, you know, which were the lightest areas. Like on top of the paws. Sometimes I put the white deliberately onto the black outline to just kind of soften it, because that's pretty opaque white, so I can actually kind of soften and disguise the black line slightly. I might eventually kind of put a little bit of extra. But okay, I actually forgot one area which should be kind of in a similar color scheme as well. So I'm going to put some color down here as well, because that's actually a chin area. So I'm trying to kind of make that lighter here as well. And I'm also going to put, you know, kind of drop that white pretty much everywhere. And you get very hair-like result. Which doesn't have to be, you know, kind of a super detailed and, you know, kind of a super long process. And if you feel that in some areas, oh, it's, you know, there's not enough, then you can always go in a little bit and, you know, kind of touch it over like this. But then I would also go over it again with kind of lighter pencil to smooth it out a bit and kind of push it back so it wouldn't be so harsh. Basically, I'm blurring the lines there a bit. Okay, and here. All right, and on the face now, I definitely will need some white. And especially there, yeah, I want it that bit kind of bright. I would, you know, bring in darker colors there as well, but I wanted to brighten up this bit there. And also I wanted to brighten up, you can see on the back here, I'm going to put some white onto the back. And now we have essentially the lighter areas. We have them sorted. Okay, you can see how this now, if you look very close, it's not super detailed, but it does look like hair, especially from the distance. And it actually looks more like hair than if you had done kind of this unified rug effect, you know, the same kind of a same direction, same length, strokes, you know, maybe slightly curving, you know, if you're lucky, you know, all over the dog. I think this slightly more haphazard approach is actually giving much more natural results. Because our eye does not need all the detail, you know, it does not need to be super rendered to perfection. Kudos to you if you can do that, and if you know, have time and patience to do that. And as I said, we all can actually do that. It's just very long and very arduous process, which I don't enjoy, so I'm not planning to do it. As I said, I have done it, I tried it, and yeah, the result, you know, is very kind of a very similar to what you get here. This is kind of a very, how can I show it? Yeah, you can see, you know, how many strokes and, you know, how sharpened the pencil had to be to get all those tiny strokes in. And yes, it looks good, but I'm not going for it here. I might need to put a little bit of a gel pen here eventually, because I don't feel that there's enough contrast. Okay, I might try to maybe, you know, where the, between the hair on the belly and hair on the leg, I wanted a little bit more contrast there. And the same story, I want the nose, and I want a little bit more contrast there as well, just a little. Okay. All right, so that's now the lighter parts done. So let's try with the darker parts. Next step is to take chocolate, which, oops, okay, you can see chocolate, which basically your darkest pencil. If you take it from Prismacolors, or if you take it from Chromaflow, also would be very nice for doing that sort of work. It needs to be a soft pencil. It's easier with a soft pencil, let's put it that way. It kind of does that almost self-blending thing. And these pencils, drawing Chromaflow, Prisma, also I feel that, okay, I'm going to put actually a stronger shadow here as well. That Lightfast also does that, and I presume Luminance also, but Luminance is, I still haven't found my love for Luminance. So, and I'm putting it where I know that there's going to be shadows. And once again, strokes. But I'm using it, I'm trying to use it kind of sparingly, so I wouldn't go here. I know that the hair direction should actually go that way, but it's very hard to get it close to the line, even shadow like this by strokes. So I'm putting the shadow down first and then taking strokes out of it. It's just easier that way, and you get more defined shadow. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And there's going to be a bit of a shadow here and here under the eye here, but this one I tried to be kind of sparing with it. Speeding it up again, and once again I am stressing that one of the main things here is just not overdo it, just put it down in scarce areas where you feel that you really need to define the shadow. And now we have kind of long hairs here, and to depict long hairs we don't want to do, you know, them strand by strand, at least I don't. So pick out clumps, or pick out the areas that are going to be behind, are going to be receding and some that are more forward, and just the ones that are kind of behind other stuff, that I've decided are behind other stuff, just make them quite dark. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm not kind of trying to draw out and shade each little strand like this. I'm essentially creating clumps. And you know, this bit here, this is kind of on the foreground. I'm making that pretty dark. And for that, you need a nice, good dark pencil, which sadly are not very prevalent in budget sets. So if you're using something that isn't Prisma or isn't Lightfast or Chromaflow or drawing pencil or something like this, Derwent drawing, or luminance or whatever, then there's actually almost hard to find that sort of a dark pencil. So what I say that in these cases is throw the rules out of the, you know, the rule book out of the window. I know that everybody says don't use black for anything, but in these instances, a little bit of a black, you know, underneath other pencils is actually fine, you know, to get that really dark shadow that, you know, you can see how much already without me putting any other pencils here, how much already it starts taking shape and looks like three-dimensional, you know. So yeah, highly recommend either black or, you know, black. Yes, it can flatten things out. You're going to have to be careful with black, but if there's other colors on top of it, you know, if it's not just on its own black, then it's actually okay. And also you can of course use like something like indigo or dark, really dark, kind of a night blue, and put browns on top of it, which will give you a really nice dark also. So experiment with that, but you do need something dark. It doesn't necessarily need to be chocolate, but you know, some dark pencil. Okay, so is it kind of starting to take shape? Okay, and here let's make, yeah, so here you can see already how much shape that has before I put any other pencils in there. And now I'm moving on from the ear, and I'm just carrying on putting the darkest pencil into the most kind of shadowy areas, just to create this kind of a base for dimension I'm eventually going to create with all the other colors on top as well. The tail is there on the ground and behind the back leg, so it's going to be pretty dark, which I also, you know, put quite a lot of dark pencil in there, and also adding some dark to random areas. So now next pencil I'm going to take a Ruby Earth, which is yeah, Ruby Earth 6510, and I'm starting to now this is a dark pencil, but it has purplish undertones now instead of something else. So I'm just now kind of doing color variations with different reddish undertone darker pencils, so it wouldn't be kind of all exactly the same. Like, I think the color variations, you know, if you're doing it kind of in a lazy coloring book way like I am doing it here, color variations and kind of positioning and playing with that, I think this is more important than kind of trying to create this super rendered texture. And now we also have to remember that these bits that are sticking out, the hair strands, these need to be dark. Okay. And I just keep shaping the face. But how it exactly looks like depends very much on what dog it is. So it would be good if you had something in these lines in front of you. This print is kind of bad because the printer I have isn't great, and it prints everything kind of a lot darker. There's no proper contrast, so it's not very helpful to me. Ideally, I would have a phone in front of me with some sort of a photo, reference photo of a dog of that breed. But my phone is filming at the moment, so we're doing things here. Shooting from the hip. So there. We'll see. I'm just trying to keep direction of the hair correct and create plenty of color variations. And I'm also trying to, now one of the things is that the artist has put that line here which depicts that this is here where the darker fur starts. What we need to do here, and one of the main things, is we don't just finish the fur there. You know, we don't stop in that kind of a zigzaggy line. We're actually bringing the fur out of it. So that line will eventually be underneath the pencil layers. And yes, it's going to be slightly visible, but because I'm not going to be covering it with gel pens or anything. Actually, I can show you kind of, you know, on the previous images here. Like here, for example, I haven't covered anything. And I don't think I should have. This one was done with light vests. So, you know, it doesn't have to be specifically drawing pencils. This one was done with drawing pencils. And you can also see the lines are all there. I haven't covered them. You just put some, you know, different, you know, and you can see here as well that it's all about color variations. And you can also see very well that I haven't really gone and depicted the hair very detailed way. It's more so hinting at the hair and hair texture than actually rendering, you know, every single strand. So, and here as well, you know, I'm just putting down different colors, some longer strokes in some areas, just making sure that, and here as well now, I just need to push the color. And I just keep pushing it out of those zigzaggy division lines. And you know, we have to also remember that this is not going to be the only color I'm going to be pushing into the light. To give a really good transition area, it needs to be kind of multiple different colors, so it would look more natural and more interesting, and also would give better coverage to that line. And I'm also taking this color obviously into the ear. I'm going to go, you know, I'm going over the kind of a darkest parts and taking it slightly out. And I'm now starting to darken those kind of strands of hair that are standing out against the white kind of or light fur. And now I am shaping the face there, basically, you know, all working in strokes. But I'm not trying to make kind of a itsy bitsy, you know, tiny strokes and render super realistic further. I'm more kind of giving an impression of the fur. And here, once again, doing the transition area, working it over slightly. and just kind of trying to make sure. Here I'm putting some white in to kind of protect the area there above the eye, so I wouldn't get too dark there, and also giving some more shape to the face there, taking it out from the darkest pencil in strokes. So what am I going to use now? I might grab Terracotta, and while it's still, I managed to break it off again, keep doing it, while it's still reasonably sharp, I'm going to go over those transition areas and put in different colored strokes there, so the transition would look more smooth and interesting. And I'm also going to drop that color in pretty much everywhere, in the fur. And I'm trying to now, let's see if it's, I should have probably done that when it was still super sharp, but I'm trying to darken those hairs. Okay, that are kind of against the white fur, so you would have a nice contrast here, and that the line art would dominate less. It would just look better that way. Okay, and once again I keep And I know there's an ugly face. There's always ugly face. We are all experienced enough to know that in any, if we get want more involved or more interesting results, there is always going to be this ugly face to our coloring pages. It's just the way of life. Kind of trust the process moment. And yeah, not always do you get a great result. Sometimes things just go sideways. And you know what? That's fine too. It doesn't always have to be a masterpiece. Sometimes it's anything but. Okay, so this is kind of a area where the hair kind of curves weirdly. It kind of changes directions several times, like here. Here it actually grows like this, and then it starts coming straight down. So it can be a bit tricky, but to combat that, just make short strokes and make them, a bit haphazard, but leave the texture. Don't try to make it very smooth. Leave the texture. Okay, I'm going to put some, did I have white here? I know I had white here. Where is it? Okay, I'm going to want to put some of it down there as well, and some of it down there. Okay, which pencil did I have? Terracotta. Yeah, so I'm just dropping it in essentially everywhere. So yes, important thing is to remember that we have to take all the colors out a little bit from the transition areas, making the strands of the strokes kind of uneven, different lengths, different strengths, and also give a texture, not just the shaping, but texture to all of the areas a little bit with pretty much all of the pencils. So the fur would lay kind of in a more interesting way. It would be multicolored and therefore would just look more natural and more interesting. And this is how it is in the nature as well. Fur isn't flat. It isn't just all the strands exactly the same color. It depends on how light falls, for example. Okay, so here I'm taking Sanguine, which is now a bit lighter, kind of more orangish tone, and I'm taking, once again, I'm going to the edges of the fur, And I'm not taking them all into equal distance from this as well. Some of them go only a little bit out. Some of them go quite a bit out. And same with here. Here. Okay, that wasn't deliberate, but it was kind of funny. And here as well. And I'm just kind of dropping in strokes of that Sanguine all over the place. Not just at the hairline, but everywhere. I'm trying to keep it going in the correct direction. So now you can see how the fur or the hair is already starting to kind of take in a little bit of a shape more than it was moments ago. And yeah, the main thing is just to keep layering strokes in different colors. And I keep saying color variations, and you say those colors aren't that different, but believe me, you know, even little kind of variations of browns and layering them gives you much more depth, and you do see it, you know, your eye actually does register that there's different colors in there. So yeah, just, you know, kind of keep stroking, keep putting texture down, and, you know, dedicate as much or as little time as you want to it. But if you totally underdo it, then it won't look great. So yeah, you can see now how the hair is starting to look a bit like hair, and you keep, you know, also, you know, putting it down the face, and you have slightly cooler areas and slightly warmer areas. Dropping some of that warm color here and there into that long hair as well, especially into the kind of some of the darker areas. The ones that are kind of the areas that I've left reasonably light, I'm leaving them be, because I need them to be pure watercolor, so they would take the pencil well, and I could actually lighten them up. If you put pencil on top of them, it's much harder to lighten them, because the pencil just won't have the same grip over other pencil. Okay, and now I'm going to take the white and just, you know, some of the strands very, very gently, not the full strand, but here and there a strand. I'm bringing it out with white here and there, like this one and this one, and maybe this one, this one. Just pick the ones that kind of look on top of other strands, but you would have needed to kind of look at that while you were actually putting the dark areas in, and leave these ones untouched. Okay, and here and here. So there. And maybe this bit here as well. And this. Okay, and now I'm taking something fairly yellow, like yellow ochre, and I'm slightly warming them up, those areas. I don't want to leave them totally kind of a cold white, because that doesn't really work well. I'm just adding a tiny bit of yellow on top of the white, and I might even go back and see if I can lighten some strands more. Yeah, because I meant this one to be light as well, and this one here, and this one, and maybe to go over this area here as well. Okay, and now I'm just going to kind of just warm them up, bring them into the same color scheme that the rest of the dog. I don't think that looks great, that strand here. I need to give it, yeah, that's better. Okay, so the ear is now all right, and I'm going to put in, where's my Mars orange? Yeah, here we are. All right, I think I'm pretty much done with it to start with. I don't think I need much more. Maybe I'll bring some strands of it, or some strokes of it into the nose. And then I'm taking the Sepia, which is one of the darkest tones once again. To me, it's a bit warmer than chocolate. And I'm just accentuating, or essentially I'm softening some of the darker areas, but also I might bring some of the dark back. Like here, the sepia, I'm actually, it just keeps happening, doesn't it? I'm pressing too hard, I'm getting impatient. And this, by the way, is my fault, not the pencils. These pencils are supposed to be treated with a loving and gentle hand. It's just their nature. Okay. And there's this bit of eye here. So I'm trying to kind of shape the eye a bit. I'm trying to think of dog's eye and how it shapes, but at the moment my head isn't really cooperating. But we'll work on something somewhat all right. So there should be that. And I'm going to bring more darkness out of here. And as you can see, those black line, kind of a stroke areas, I'm not going to do anything with them, because if I actually did try to cover them, they would, any covering of them would actually bring them more forward and make them more prominent. So you're better off leaving them as is. Okay. There's dip in the dog's head here. There's a bit of a shadow, so I'm going to put that in, and I'm also putting some of the warm earth there to make the shadow here stronger with the, you know, the whites. So it's darker like all through, creating this darker bit here. Just shaping a bit now. That's pretty much all I'm doing. Maybe bringing some strands from here into the fur as well, the lighter part of the fur. Okay. Alrighty, and what am I going to do here? Now here I'm almost thinking about putting some sort of a gel pen in the kind of top of the head, but I haven't decided if I will do that or not. And under the nose, strengthening that shadow. And you can see now that the contrast between that fairly dark reddish fur and the lighter fur makes the lighter fur, although anything but light and anything but white, look much lighter. So there we go. Okay, I'm going to put some reddish tones into that back as well. I had kind of forgotten this area. All right, and now I think I'm not going to struggle with the fur much longer. I'm pretty much going to leave it as is. Maybe I'm going to try to lighten this area here. I'm taking some strands through it so it wouldn't be so flat. So where's my Mars orange? Yeah, so it would be a bit more natural looking. There we go. And where's my white again? Keep losing it. can't really put anything there because of the angle, but I'm going to put something into the corner of the eye like this. Just trying to get the shape right, but you know, it's, if you don't have reference in front of you, then it's a bit tricky. But I'd say we're going to be fine with that result. It does look like fur. Like if I'm lifting it a bit, it does look like a hint of the fur. And if I'm bringing it closer, maybe you can see it better. There you go. So I might work a little bit on the other bits of the kind of face as well, with the tongue and nose. We can do the nose. Let me see. Do I have... Here I'm actually going for a black pencil because that's really the only option. The Springer Spaniel nose can be black, but is often kind of also slightly reddish tinged. So here I'm going to put, that's Prismacolor Black. That is my son singing somewhere. And there's dark bit here under the nose. There's going to be kind of lighter bit under the nostrils here, usually. And there's also a bit that goes like this, like little divide in the nose. And here there's also kind of softer shadow. It's going upwards. And the nose is also darker in this bit here. So I'm going to give a bit of a shadow here and here. And now I need something dark, so let's try Ruby Earth. No, that's not the right color. I need something more just kind of a stronger there. Where's my... I guess I'm going to do the bit of a sepia there. Where is sepia? Here. That has a reddish tone as well. It's actually called sepia red. Sepia doesn't necessarily have usually red undertones, but this specific sepia does. I'm not sure about that that highlight there. I don't think it looks right. Yeah, I don't like that highlight. I'm going to go over it, I think. I'm going to do the Sanguine then. I just couldn't find the Terracotta. So I'm going to give that nose is a bit of a... Okay, I need more darker values here. The contrast isn't strong enough. A lot of it was because I went over it with some quite opaque and slightly then lighter pencils than the initial black was. Now there is a bit of a reddish tinge to the nose, like spaniels do have, and I might put, you know, maybe a little bit of a color in there, but that's, haven't decided it yet. So I need something gray here now for the eye, and actually I might do it with warm earth, because that would then harmonize us all. Yeah, because just put some whites of the eye once again, or not white. I'm also kind of trying to make sure that I'm kind of accentuating the eye a bit more. The lines were getting a bit too blurred here. All right. That eye is a bit slightly weirdly shaped, and I can't really fix it at the moment. So, and I would like to drop some pink here underneath the eye, but I don't have pinks at the moment, so I'm going to do it later. And like that. This one is still like, it's the highlight is too big for the eye. Yeah, that's a bit better. If the highlight gets too big, it pretty much overwhelms eye and creates this kind of a weird copy-paste effect, whereas now it looks a bit more natural. Okay, that's it now. This one should be okay. Now I could, of course, you know, put some extra darks in with black if I wanted to, but I don't feel it's very necessary. I still need to do the tongue and the rest of the mouth, but I will do these now different set of pencils. So I essentially just showed you the fur bit. If you wait a tiny bit, I can show you maybe, you know, how it, you know, the whole mouth and everything when it's done, how the dog looks like. Just a second. I kind of forgot to switch on the camera when I was doing that bit of the mouth, but here I'm doing the tongue. I'm using Chromaflow Pompeian red is the color. It's basically strong, kind of a cool red from any set really would work. And I'm shaping the tongue here a bit. I don't want to go too dark with it. At the same time, I want a good shadow from the mouth onto the tongue. So I'm putting a bit of darker red down there. As you can see, I've already given the tongue the shape. It curves a bit here on the sides, so, and then the bottom, so I'm putting shadow there. Okay, and then it also kind of dips and curves here, so I'm going to create a shadow here. And now, because I've taken a good bit of dark red here, I call it Pompeian red, but charcoal red, just remember that. And I'm taking now Deep Sea, which is kind of dark blue with a slightly green undertone. It doesn't really matter, any dark blue will do. And I'm just very gently underneath the upper jaw here, underneath the nose, giving this little band of it, and it's mixing in, applying it gently, but you know, kind of massaging it very gently in layers underneath the nose. And I'm also coming a little bit out of it, even gentler, and into that crease in the tongue as well. Very close to the line, very gentle. We don't want it to look blue eventually. We don't want it to look as a shadow, because that lifts the nose from the tongue. The tongue isn't against the upper jaw like this. The mouth, if the tongue is out like this, the mouth is fairly open. So there must be pretty strong shadow here. And it must be pretty wide shadow. So it would actually show you. If I make the shadow very, very tight and very small, it looks like the tongue is directly against the upper jaw. But we want here to create an impression that the mouth is hanging open and the tongue is in a fair distance actually from the upper jaw. So that's why I put that darker blue in as well and diffused it out so it wouldn't be just a very narrow band of it. And I'm also diffusing it even more out here, so the shadow would be stronger but wider, and it would be very kind of a blurred shadow. Okay, so here we go. Everything is now blurred out, and I'm also going to bring in a tiny bit of Scarlet, and with Scarlet I'm kind of diffusing that from the previous color upwards. This is much warmer red, and that brings now the bit that I'm diffusing upward, it brings it more kind of forward. Also gives it a nice color variation, so it wouldn't look flat. Even objects that are very, very carefully rendered and shaded and should in theory, they have really strong shadows and really really kind of a bright highlights, can occasionally look flattish if it's very essentially add white the same color gradient. Not that it always looks flat. I'm not saying that it's wrong or it always looks flat, but it can look flat in certain situations. And I think a bit of a color variation, some cooler tones, some warmer tones, give nicer looking dimensions and more natural looking dimensions. There we go. There's the tongue, and doesn't it look pretty good, if I say so myself? You might kind of go... In this book, I don't try to flatten everything down terribly, because I kind of like the texture here. Oh, I forgot to say that this color is blush pink. It's a really nice pink in Chromaflow series. So in this book, because I'm already I'm working with textures here, I'm making the dog quite textured. I'm not trying to kind of make smooth finishes, so I'm keeping everything kind of in the same vein. I'm actually grabbed a coffee bean, which is a dark brown, and I feel that underneath the chin here the shadow wasn't enough, because there's pretty strong shadow there, although it's certainly not light fur, but it's a strong shadow. So I'm going to push it a bit, and yeah, it looks much better. It kind of brought the face and the jaw forward, and it didn't have the same anemic feel. And I'm going to put a little bit more darkness here as well. So as now you can see, it doesn't have to be absolutely just drawing pencils. I just grabbed another pencil set And you know, if I see some areas that I want to or need to fix or work tiny bit over, I don't need to just keep to the same colors or just the same set. Whatever set is at my hand. So I'm, you know, putting a little bit more of the coffee bean here and there in the shadows of the ear as well, just to kind of make it more interesting, and maybe bringing some strands of it into the fur. Okay, and I also want to kind of, the brow of the dog needs to be more pronounced, I think. So this bit is where, you know, the skull kind of rises this bit over the eye, but it flattens out again, kind of around here. So I'm putting a bit of an extra shadow there. Just to make it look a bit more anatomically true. And I'm not trying to make, you know, anatomically perfect dog here. Okay. And I'm also putting in some, you know, how to liven or how to create more realistic eye also. If you put some red a little bit underneath the eye and the same blush pink to kind of blend it out, and already that lifted the eye. It's really weirdly drawn there. I can't really do much about it. I don't plan to. This is my dog giving out to me. I'm ignoring her at the moment because she is not in distress. She's just cranky and entitled. There you go. Oh, she just got really annoyed with me, jumped off the couch, and she's going to leave the room, isn't she? You can kind of hear her pattering around the room, demanding a due. Yeah, you can just do a little bit of fixings here and there. But in all the fairness, I think it's kind of fine. You know, I don't need to go all out anymore. But, you know, I'm making the dip here over the eye a bit stronger. You know, where her eyelid would be, and just maybe kind of raising that brow area a little bit more, just a little bit, just by putting some extra shadows in. But this is like all, you know, you can, if you have a reference photo or something in front of it, this comes quite naturally. I didn't, so I was doing it all. I think it should look like this. So yeah. Any mistakes can be attributed to my lack of reference photos. Anyways, no, this is it. That's it. The dog is done. I still need to do the golden bit on the collar, but I'm not going to start wasting time with that at the moment. Thank you very much for watching. I presume I have put some bits of this into the speed coloring, because otherwise it would take ages to get through this dog, you know, it was good 2 hours. So yeah, hopefully you are not that tired of watching it. Thank you very much for staying with me. Sorry about my dog, who is screaming in the background and demanding that I lift her onto the couch and put a blanket on her. Have a lovely evening or morning or afternoon, whatever the time is in your corner of the world. And stay strong, stay healthy, stay creative, and bye-bye.